History has this weird way of looping over and over again. Same scandals, same excuses, and somehow the same names right smack in the middle of it all. And this time, the name that keeps popping up is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. For years, the Democrats and big media outlets have tried to push a whole set of accusations surrounding her as fringe nonsense. Something you weren't supposed to talk about, something that must automatically be a smear. But now, that lid is coming off. The story is getting bigger, louder, and harder to ignore. Because according to prosecutors, we're not just talking about a giant fraud scheme in Minnesota anymore. We're talking about people close to Omar allegedly getting rich off money that was supposed to feed hungry kids during COVID. And to top it off, a key witness from within the Somali community has now come forward claiming he personally heard Omar admit that she married her own brother to help him get into the United States. Grab your popcorn. Buckle up, because if even a portion of this holds up, we might be watching a political career crash in real time. Hey team, it's Dr. Steve, your Patriot professor, here to help you break through all the noise and understand how the left is scrambling to stop the rise of a new conservative age that you are helping build across the world. If you want to stay one step ahead of the chaos and watch history change as you're making it, make sure you're subscribed and you've smacked that bell so you never miss a thing. Now, let's talk about Ilhan Omar. Since the moment she got to Congress in 2018, she has built her brand around portraying herself as a victim, always fighting off what she calls Islamophobic attacks or racist America. And sure, discrimination exists. Nobody denies that. But Omar has turned the accusation of discrimination into a kind of political force field anytime someone questions her actions. She says it's because people hate who she is, not because there might be something wrong with what she's doing. There might be something wrong with what she's doing. According to her critics, that a professional victim's stance has worked extremely well, because every allegation becomes just another racist lie. Meanwhile, real questions, serious questions, about what's been happening in her district keep stacking up with no answers. And now those questions are starting to land in courtrooms. Federal prosecutors in Minnesota have been working through what they call the largest COVID-era feeding fraud case in the United States. Nearly 80 people have already been charged. Prosecutors say over $250 million taxpayer money meant to feed low-income children was siphoned into luxury cars, mansions, foreign properties, and shopping sprees. And one of the central hubs of that fraud, according to the indictments, was Safari Restaurant in Minneapolis. Why does that matter? Ooh, well, Safari Restaurant isn't just any restaurant. That's where Ilhan Omar held her 2018 congressional victory party. It wasn't just some random spot in her community. It was part of her celebration on her road to Washington, D.C. According to reports cited by Fox News and the New York Post, the owners of Safari claimed they were feeding millions of meals. Millions. And they wound up collecting over $32 million in government money. Prosecutors say a lot of that didn't go to food, but to a $2 million house, luxury travel, and even a $9,000 a month shopping habit at Nordstrom. And there's actual video of Omar visiting that very place in 2021, smiling for cameras, helping hand out what were supposed to be meals for children. Yeah. But the story doesn't stop with just one restaurant. Prosecutors say the fraud spread through a whole network of organizations that were claiming to feed kids, but were instead cashing in on government programs with practically zero oversight. And in the middle of that web, people connected to Omar's own political circle. There's one name in particular, Guhad Hashi, a Democratic activist and former Omar campaign staffer. He admitted in court that he ran a fake site that claimed it was serving 5,000 meals per day. He allegedly pocketed millions. And this isn't just some random dude. He worked on Omar's campaigns in 2018 and 2020, reportedly helping turn out votes in the Somali community. So now we have alleged fraudsters who aren't just in the same district, they're inside her inner circle. And when you zoom out, a pattern suddenly appears. A huge amount of taxpayer money, hundreds of millions, maybe even more, was being thrown around with hardly any serious accountability. And who benefits politically from all that money flowing into that community? Local power brokers, politicians, people like Ilhan Omar. At the very least, even critics who try to be charitable say she should have known what was going on around her. Others say she couldn't have helped. But no. Let's add another detail. During the height of COVID, Omar introduced and supported legislation that expanded feeding programs, including something called the Meals Act in 2020. That bill opened the floodgates for even more federal dollars into programs like Feeding Our Future, the same operation at the center of the fraud case. Now, Omar's supporters argue that she was just trying to make sure children got fed during the pandemic. Totally reasonable. But critics point out, some of the very money that Bill helped unleash allegedly ended up lining pockets of people she campaigned with. And some of those people donated to her campaign, about $5,400 that investigators have identified so far. That's just what's been found publicly. Who knows what hasn't been uncovered yet? Omar, of course, denies any wrongdoing. She says any suggestion that she was involved or even knew what was going on is just racist targeting of her community. But a lot of folks aren't buying that anymore. They're looking at the timeline, the connections, the photos, the video appearances, and they're asking, how do you campaign with these folks? Celebrate your win at their restaurant, push the legislation that helps send hundreds of millions their way, receive donations, and then somehow not know anything. Even people who don't like partisan hit jobs are saying, this smells, and prosecutors say they're not done yet. There are more indictments coming. Some say this is only the tip of the iceberg. And then, just when you think that's enough scandal for one politician, we circle back to something that has followed Omar since before she was elected, the immigration allegations. For years, Omar has angrily dismissed claims that she married her brother as a ridiculous conspiracy theory. And media outlets have usually treated it like a baseless rumor. But now a new twist. A Somali community figure named Abdi Hakim Osman has gone on the record saying that Omar herself admitted to friends that the man she legally married in 2009, Ahmed Nur, said Elmi, is actually her brother. Osman says Omar explained she was just trying to help him stay in the US and go to school. He describes Elmi arriving from London, being introduced by Omar and her first husband as her brother, and then suddenly becoming her husband on paper. There's also the strange timeline. Omar was with her original partner, Ahmed Hirsi. They separated, supposedly divorced, and then she married Elmi, who critics allege was her brother. But even while she was legally married to Elmi, she allegedly stayed with Hirsi as partners. Then she divorced Elmi, and later reunited and remarried Hirsi, just in time for her to launch her congressional run in 2018. People have pointed to Instagram posts, family photos, records, showing Elmi calling Omar's child his niece, and community gossip from back in Minneapolis long before she ever became a national figure. It's all circumstantial. There's no publicly released legal document proving a sibling relationship. Omar strongly denies it. Her supporters say it's all xenophobic nonsense. But the criticism keeps popping back up because no one has ever provided solid documentation clearing up the situation either. Questions were asked, and instead of answers, accusations of racism were launched. So now you have two major storylines colliding. Allegations that people tied to Omar's political rise were involved in the biggest feeding fraud case in America. Allegations that Omar abused immigration laws, possibly through a fraudulent marriage, even if you take the most cautious approach. Even if you call everything unproven, that's still a mountain of smoke. Critics say the reason this is suddenly exploding isn't because anything new happened. It's because the media shield is cracking. When federal indictments and sworn testimony stack up, it's harder and harder for newsrooms to look the other way. The narrative is no longer Republicans are smearing her. It's a why are there so many unanswered questions? Omar's defenders insist this is all persecution. Her critics insist the walls are closing in and it's finally time for real accountability. And look, maybe the full truth will take months or even years to come out. Maybe Omar walks out of this clean, or maybe this becomes one of the biggest political scandals we've seen in Congress in decades. But one thing is impossible to deny anymore. This story isn't going away. Federal courts are involved now. Real defendants, real prison time, real names, real connections, and reporters. Mainstream reporters are finally digging instead of ignoring. If Omar has answers, now would be the moment for her to give them. Because her political Teflon coat is starting to peel. So, what do you think? Is this all a giant mess of baseless accusations? Or is the Democratic establishment scrambling to protect one of their own as the whole thing starts to unravel? Drop your thoughts below. I always love seeing what you guys think. And don't forget to tap that bell and subscribe so you're the first to know when more of this story comes out. I have a feeling this is just getting started. God bless, and stay tuned.